Welcome to Eureka Math. I'm Mr. Shankel. I'm going to be helping you today with Module 3, Lesson 5. Let's get started. We're going to use equivalent ratios to solve a problem here. And the first thing we do when we read this problem is to pick out the ratio. So let's read the problem and figure out what the ratio may be that's given to us. It says, when Carla looked out at the school parking lot, she noticed that for every 2 minivans, there were 5 other types of vehicles. If there are 161 vehicles in the parking lot, how many of them are not minivans? Well, right away I see a ratio here that says, starts with for every 2 minivans. So I'm going to call the first number we use MV for minivans, and we're going to make that a 2. And then we're going to compare that to the rest of it. There were 5 other types. So let's call that other types. How about that? And that number was 5. Okay, so now I have a ratio that's comparing the number of minivans to other vehicles. Okay, the rest of this story tells me if I need to add to get a different value or subtract. So let's read the rest. If there are 161 vehicles, well, that means minivans and other types. So in order to use the 161 number here, in order to use that, I have to make a new category, which has to be all vehicles. And if I'm going to talk about all vehicles, I'll just call it all, then I need to add the minivans to all the others. So when I add the minivans to all the others, that gives me a total of 7, according to my ratio. Okay? Now, all equivalent ratios are consistent and corresponding. They're consistent in that if I compare minivans to other types, my equivalent ratio has to be minivans to other types. So it's always the same. Doesn't matter how I set it up. Could be minivans to all vehicles. My equivalent ratio would then have to be minivans to all vehicles. So it's consistent. It also corresponds. It corresponds to ratio to real. Every one is going to change from our ratio that's given to us into some real numbers. So is there a real number here? Well, yeah. It's right here. 161 vehicles. That's a real number. And it's a total between the minivans and all the other types. So that 161 is going to go right here. 161 is the all vehicles in real life. Now, do we know how many minivans there are? Nope. Do we know how many other vehicles there are? Nope. But if I add those up, they're going to be equal to 161. They're going to equal that. Well, how do we find out what those numbers are? Well, we write an equivalent ratio. So let me get a new pen here so we'll just use a different color. We write an equivalent ratio. And I'm going to try to find the minivans first. So I'm going to use my minivan number. My minivan number is 2. I need to leave myself a little more space. My minivan number is going to be a 2. And I'm going to compare it to all vehicles because on the all vehicles side, I know both of these numbers. So I need to use that in my ratio. So my all vehicle number is 7. That's on the ratio side. The real number of total vehicles is 161. Well, now I've got it set up so I can use a constant. Let me get it. There we go. I can use a constant and find out 7 times what is 161. Well, I don't know what that is, so I'm going to divide. 161 divided by 7. 7 goes into 16 2 times. 2 times 7 is 14. Subtract, I get a 2, bring down the 1. 7 goes into 21 3 times. It's 23. So my constant is 23. Whatever I multiply one side by, I have to multiply the other side by. So 2 times 23 is 46. Well, that's a bad 6. There's a 6. 46. So 46 is the total number of minivans. It's right there. Total number of minivans is 46. How do we find the total number of all other vehicles? Well, we set up another ratio. And this time, I'm gonna, let's see, let me get a new color here. I'm gonna use the other vehicles number. So other vehicles is 5. I'm gonna compare that to all vehicles, again right here, which is 7. So that goes there. And I know in real life I've got 161 real vehicles. I already figured this out, that my constant is a 23. So if I multiply 5 times 23, that will give me my answer. And it turns out that 5 times 23 is 115. And that is the total number of other types of vehicles. So we used equivalent ratios to set up and solve for one missing item. And we can do that as long as we have something here where we know both the ratio and the real side. Okay? Hope that helps. I'll see you again next time.